Good afternoon and welcome to the December 7th regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. Our consent agenda, I need a mover for the minutes and the agenda. It's recommended by Councillor Fraz, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Correspondence. We have two pieces of correspondence on the agenda. The Environment and Climate Change Canada requests to conduct research on Salish seagulls. I didn't know there was such a thing until I read this. But so early in 2020, it came to us and we granted approval to conduct research on the City of Parksville's beaches. Due to time constraints, the ECCC was unable to conduct the research at the time. However, staff have now received another request to conduct field research on Salish sea gull species in parks and beaches within the City of Parksville, and staff are seeking Council's approval for the request. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Moved by Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Patterson. Any discussion? Councillor O'Brien.
Just to be fair to those that are listening online, I was just going to read out the recommendations, if I may, Your Worship.
Please, feel free.
So what we would like to pass a motion anyways to recommend the following. That number one, that the correspondence from Environmental and Climate Change Canada received November 9th, 2020, requesting permission to conduct research on gull species in parks and beaches within the City of Parksville be received. Item 2, that Environment and Climate Change Canada be granted approval to conduct the requested research on beaches within City of Parksville boundaries. And item 3, that the city request a copy of the final report from Environment and Climate Change Canada for information.
Moved and seconded. We're past that point. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Correspondence from the Parksville Downtown Business Association funding for the pedestrian wayfinding. In 2017, council authorized funding over a period of 3 years for the PDBA, Pedestrian Wayfinding Project, with Resolution 17-114. One that council approved the inclusion of the PDBA wayfinding proposal as presented at the April 10th, 2017 council meeting in the 2017 to 2021 financial plan in the amount of $168,000 to be dispersed over 3 years. Number 2, that the funding for the wayfinding project included in the 2017 to 2020 financial plan be dispersed in the amounts of $74,000 in 2017, $47,000 in 2018, $47,000 in 2019. The program is more than 2/3 complete, with much of much of the signage purchased and installed. However, the allocated fundings to achieve completion on the final phase was not dispersed in 2019, and the amount was not carried forward to the 2020 budget. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Chandler. Discussion? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. First and foremost, on the background information, it speaks of the efforts by the Pam Bottomley and Joe Doxey from the City of Victoria to actually note deficiencies in the project so far. And I want to put out our appreciation to the fact that they've gone around and under warranty items, they've noted those things and contacted the supplier and had all the deficiencies taken care of, which was quite a project that they did in itself. And which I certainly appreciate the fact that they've done that, and that way the wayfinding system should last longer because they're making sure that it was done according to the standard that was suggested originally. Also, I'd like to comment on the fact that we have spoken in the past about how the City of Parksville contributes in kind funding for the various projects, and I was quite surprised actually how much in-kind funding and staff time was actually used for the wayfinding system. So it's something that we have to keep in mind very much, because the staff are super overloaded as it is, as we know. And in this particular project itself, I know that our department, engineering and Joe Doxey and previous spent a lot of time on it. So just moving forward anyways, is that in any other requests that come up like this, I think that we certainly must actually qualify the in-kind contribution by the city, because it has turned into be a considerable project that has perhaps sidelined some other projects that were needing of assistance. So it's a good job, well done so far, but I just recognize the fact that the city of Parksville did contribute an awful lot to the success of this project.
Thank you. Any other comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Reports. Mr. Dawson, if he's in there somewhere. There he is. Could you please give us the background on the issue regarding the 2021 UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Emergency Social Services Grant application? Wow, that's a lot.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, Your Worship, to Council. The province of BC provides funding to emergency programs for their development, and it comes under the form of the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, which is administered by UBCM. We have been in front of Council previously under this fund and been successful in the development of our emergency pet support trailer, and most recently this year we've completed a grant application for group lodging supplies. So with this application this year, what we are looking for support on is the province has modernized the ESS program to make it a digital program where applicable. It still has the current paper program in place. Our volunteers are now trained in both. This grant application would allow us the access to the laptop computers, tablets, portable Wi-Fi systems, the things that are required in order to modernize in the way the province has developed the program now. So the recommendation for support is there. We would do this in coordination with the town of Qualicum Beach, as we did with the group lodging supplies this year. Again, the recommendation is there for your consideration, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Councillor Chandler for all three. Okay, seconder. Councillor Fraz, discussion. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question through you to our emergency program coordinator. And that, have you gone to Qualicum Beach as well, to the council there? Or did you need their support for the grant application?
Through Your Worship, we will be going to council. The same report goes to council in Qualicum Beach on Wednesday night. Parksville's meeting just happens to be before Qualicum's meeting.
Any other comments, questions? I will call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dawson.
Thank you.
But I guess you keep right on going. So you give us background on the issue regarding emergency program agreement renewal.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And again, through you to council. Emergency preparedness is required, is legislated by the province. However, the province does not legislate how that is done as long as it is done. In this area, as council will be aware, emergency management Oceanside was developed informally by the three local governments, Parksville, Qualicum, and the regional district, in order to provide what has been seamless support to residents in the Oceanside area. Recently, the regional district of Nanaimo has chosen to separate from emergency management Oceanside. We're not 100% sure why, other than they want to have one program to suit the whole region. there are, although this end of it is informal, there are two formal agreements for funding and essentially mutual aid that are in place that both expire either at the end of this year or partway through 2021. We took this as an opportunity to approach council to formalize what we are doing, formalize essentially emergency management Oceanside, and how we provide support to the residents, not just in Parksville and Qualicum, but to the surrounding area as would be determined by council. As we've never approached council before, we think that the recommendations in front of you provide the best support to all the residents in the Oceanside area efficiently and effectively, while also providing financial responsibility to taxpayers. Again, the recommendations are there for you, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations, 1 through 3. Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Chandler. Discussion?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I have just a couple questions regarding the recommendations as such here. I just want clarity anyways, if I could, for Mr. Dawson and possibly or our CAO. In our background package anyways, there's information regarding the different options that are possibly available or could be passed today on this type of thing. And if you could give me more detail, like basically it's options 1, 2, and 3. Is kind of as to the benefits and so forth of each one of those options. I just seeking clarity of what we're actually seeking here. Thank you.
Certainly, I'll give a shot at it, and Kiva can correct me if I'm wrong. Again, we are trying to create the most efficient and effective delivery of emergency management to any and all residents in the Oceanside area. We have experience and knowledge that it doesn't really matter where you're from in this area. When an emergency or disaster happens, you are looking for support, and it would be problematic to have to turn people away because they had to go somewhere else to require that support. We feel that the recommendation, as I have explained, does the best for all the purposes we're talking about in the report. However, we're not privy to everything that council is aware of. So what we did was take all the options on the table, put them out there for your consideration. If one of those options is better for council, we are quite happy to move forward with whatever option council chooses. We just are looking for some direction that will help us negotiate the new agreements in the best way possible for everyone. I don't know if I really answered your question, but I hope I did.
Councillor O'Brien, did he answer your question?
Somewhat. Thank you, Mr. Dawson, on that, if I may, Your Worship. Just in between, so what we're seeking to do right here, I'm just seeking clarification from our CAO. So the recommendations is going to be to go forward, if I may, anyways, based on the suggestions as such, that staff just be directed to work with the town of Qualicum Beach. And is that any particular option that's in here? Do we have to identify an option or just identify exactly as recommended? Thank you.
If I may, Your Worship, also, Aaron, you may not know this, but your sound is not great, so I'll just jump in for that purpose as well here. So the recommendation is that staff is recommending that we explore the option of working with the regional district for the town of Qualicum EPC and the city of Parksville's EPC to provide emergency planning in Oceanside through a fee-for-service agreement, which is quite a deviation from what we do today. We do that though for fire protection in a couple of areas, and we thought that just because the agreement is up for renewal and this hasn't really had a lot of elected official discussion or weigh in, that this might be a good opportunity to look at providing that. In reality, we are in the region all the time, and the RDN has to share its time between District 68 and 69. And we've heard anecdotally that they're focusing a little bit more energy on the District 68 just because that program's not as well developed. And so we thought that council could give its support for that concept if that's something council wishes. And then we would reach out and do kind of the negotiations and look at the ways that could be paid for, and that would come back to council and all of the parties to figure out. But if council is happy with the way things are going with the 3 local governments just kind of independently working but collaborating, we would just need to write that agreement with a little bit more clarity on what happens on a day-to-day basis, kind of who does what, where, and when, and also what would happen during emergencies. So if the emergency is a region-wide emergency that requires support in 68 and 69, I think we would need to clarify who's kind of leading it in this area. So we're happy to do, a number of these options that council has before them, but we thought it might be a good opportunity to look at doing something a little bit different as we move forward.
Any other questions? All right, I'll call the question then. All those in favor of the recommendations? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. Well done. Mr. Russell, do we have you on the screen somewhere? There he is. Welcome. Could you give us a background on the issue on the follow-up report, zoning and development bylaw amendment application for 480 and 490 Island Highway West, please?
Certainly, if I may, Worship. For council consideration this evening is a follow-up report since the application was originally presented to council on July the 6th, where a bylaw was introduced for first reading at that time. Since that date, the applicant has sent a detailed information package with respect to their proposal to property owners and tenants within 50 meters of the site and collected comments accordingly. This is in lieu of holding an open house due to COVID-19 restrictions. Their summary of what they sent out is attached to the staff report. This application is is intended to facilitate a 31-unit 4-story apartment building with multifamily residential, tourist accommodation, and seniors-oriented uses permitted on the subject properties. The recommendations are as per the agenda to receive the report, to receive and consider the comments presented by the proponent, and in the bylaw section to consider the bylaw for second reading and the setting of a public hearing date.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Moved by Councillor Chandler, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Discussion? Then we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Mrs. Keeler, your report, please, on COVID-19 safe restart grant for local governments.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, so at the previous meeting, staff advised council that we had been in receipt of an unsolicited grant from the provincial government. Basically, this money has eligibility requirements that would allow the local government to spend the funds on a variety of different things, but they really need to be tied to COVID, either through COVID recovery or expenses that we've incurred in response to COVID. And so we looked through the expenses that we had, and as we'd mentioned to council, we were tracking the staff time that we needed to respond right from the beginning. And so if anything, it's an underestimate, but we had basically tracked that as of the writing of the report, which I think was early this month, we were already over 5,100 hours in about an 8-month period, which is 3 full-time positions. So it's a lot of work, certainly. And so basically what we tried to do with this report is justify certain expenses, explaining where we think they are eligible for this funding. We've been told by the province that they will not be auditing us per se, but we would report out on anything that this fund was used to pay for until the fund has been diminished. So there is a number of different things listed here, and the explanations in the report outline why and how staff think they're eligible for the grant. And the correspondence from the province is attached as well, so people can read for themselves what the province's wording was. And recommendations are per the agenda.
Thank you. Just before we go a little bit any further with this, should be really clear because there's been some misunderstanding in the public that this money was to be granted to businesses and individuals around town, where in fact, it was for the local government to offset our expenses due to COVID and for ongoing COVID expenses, COVID-related expenses. When we asked the government what it was that we are required to spend the money on, they provided us a response that said, you tell us what you did spend the money on. It has to be, and I'll read just quickly for the sake of the people listening, some of the things. It says addressing revenue shortfalls, facility reopening and operating costs, emergency planning and response costs, bylaw enforcement and protective services for like fire protection and police, computer and other electronic technology costs to improve the interconnectivity and virtual communications, services for vulnerable persons, i.e. living with disabilities, mental illness, addictions, persons experiencing homelessness or other vulnerabilities, and other related costs. So those were the general outlines that they provided us, and that is how this has been derived. I just wanted to make that clear. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations that are in their agenda. Moved by Councillor Chandler, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Discussions. Councillor Chandler, please.
Thank you. Through your worship, just a couple of comments. Looking at some of the spending, there's obviously a lot of recovery of, again, staff time and staff costs, staff related things. Was explained to me a little bit earlier just in regards to the water treatment offset and things. And we had seen a lot of this in the budget when we'd had the budget related info given to us by Director of Finance, Lucky Butterworth. So it was really good information to know where we had been affected by the fact that the tourism wasn't here, and a lot of things that happened throughout the year impacted us in a big way as far as the costs to our city. So I appreciate all these things in front of us here. Obviously, there's a lot to digest, and it's well thought out, I believe, the way it's set up, and good staff time spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we go any further, I should add in that just prior to this meeting, we decided to additionally, council should consider the following from this grant, that council approve the addition of 2 contract positions in the Special Projects Department for a 3-year term, and the creation of a contract reserve of $150,000 for specialized assistance for council projects. That also will be added on to the list that was provided here. Councillor O'Brien, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. And further to this, I totally agree with the spending package here that has been put forward to us in the agenda here. It's fair and reasonable. At this time, I was wondering, would we be able to include also perhaps including a portion of this for the Bolinas Track Renewal Project, which would qualify, as I read under the BC province of BC letter here, in so much as that the Bolinas Track Project Committee has come back with a revised construction cost analysis, which I was going to detail in my new business later on here, but they've come in with the project cost of 1.5 million total for a revised and not as many bells and whistles on it, so to speak. But anyways, so either it would be setting aside, I would suggest $250,000, which could be either through the RDN portion, which would be the City of Parksville portion, or if that fails, then through a direct portion contribution from the City of Parksville. Would it be possible to add that? Is this the right time? Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Keeler?
If I may, Your Worship, we had asked the province for some funding guidance on what we could spend this on, and they didn't give us a lot of information, but they did say that it should not be used for capital. So I'd want to double check with them that that could be somehow allocated, perhaps maybe even as an operating grant or something, if council wanted us to look into that. And the town of Qualicum Beach was also told they couldn't use it for capital, and they were trying to apply it to a fire truck, and they were told not that it basically had to be more on the operating and recovery side. So just a caution that we'd have to perhaps double check that that's a permitted use of the funds.
Please.
As a follow-up, thank you to our CAO, Kaylee. And that's great. I just was looking at the descriptions and anything that would promote healthy wellness and so forth in the community in a socially distanced environment type of thing, which the track obviously would qualify for. That was my thought process on that. But by all means, definitely to get with full approval that this would be acceptable under the BC housing rules and regulations here. That would be fine. Would you need a motion for that at this time?
Yes, yes. We need a motion from you. Yeah, we already do. So it's got to be after this one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we'll bring it up. Just as a side note on that, I'll come to you, Councillor Patterson, in just a second. We also have not, all of this funding that we left aside for next year as well, $1 million, about $1 million left that we could, you know, even if we don't look at it right now, we can look at it out of that reserve next year. Okay, just to know. Councillor Patterson.
That's part of where I was going, is that when I did a tally of what's in our current package, is that we still had part of the COVID grant money left over, and that we could be looking at it in 2021, and that to move forward. And I'm pleased to see that. I really do believe that we have to look at this in the years moving forward, and that not everything can be accomplished in a short period of time. So this money needs to be looked at, and as these projects are taking place as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that comment. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm glad you see me up here. I do have a question, just a bit of a clarification, if I could, through you to our CAO about the Shelley Road Center, because it's saying that it has not been maintained. So I'm just wondering, can you explain a bit more about, the kind of renos you're going to do to it, and what would happen with, the building in itself if it's in such poor shape, or maybe it isn't after you finish. Thank you.
If I may, Your Worship. So the reason why this one came forward was specific to retrofitting that facility so that it would be COVID compliant for gatherings. So similar to how we've had to do at City Hall, we've had to add plexi, we have to have surfaces that are sanitizable. And so what I have not actually inspected the building, but we would probably have to look at things like separation, at the entryways. In some areas, we've had to create new entryways and exits so that people are kind of doing a one-way flow. So what we would propose is that there be an assessment done of that building of what would need to change to essentially meet the COVID requirements of a COVID plan, which would allow for meeting events and small gatherings compliant with the rules at the time. And then also operating, we find it costs significantly more. You have to sanitize all the time. You have to bring in specialized cleaning. You need more PPE, more supplies, and then a lot more sort of changes to the way you used to book. So there might be IT things needed rather than paper. So we thought that money would help us get that facility kind of operating at full capacity, even while COVID is going to be with us for at least another year. Hopefully not much longer than that.
Thank you.
Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the mayor, I wanted to mention too, we've been tracking a lot of things that are happening throughout the province as far as their assistance and the federal government assistance too as well. And I think that there's a lot of money flowing in. There's so many things that are helpful for our businesses and for for different sectors. Obviously, people that are having issues financially, people suffering homelessness, and all of the different avenues. There's millions of dollars that have flown into these provinces, and it's hopefully we're going to be seeing some of that spent, as it is the jurisdiction that's very important to be dealt with in a global sense, and I hope to see that there's a little bit more money from the province put towards these things too, and directed a little bit differently. So that's just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien, did I see your hand up? I think we've all gone around.
Thank you, Your Worship. So would it be appropriate at this time to put an amended motion forth about the Bolinas track allocation into our recommended suggestions as here?
If I may, Your Worship, it might be easier if we voted on this first and then a new motion to investigate whether, like, the amount and then whether that's something we can use the fund for. I might make that suggestion.
Okay. All right, having said all of that, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor on the recommendations? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Now, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, I would like to make a motion to set aside an allocation to the Bolinas Track Renewal Fund in the amount of $250,000 from the COVID Safe Restart Grant Fund to be provided and set aside with the proviso that it meets with acceptance by the BC government.
Seconded by Councillor Patterson. Discussion? If I may, just one quick question. Could you just read the first part of that again for me? Just the beginning of it? You have your motion, sorry, yes. It was up there? Okay. Somebody read it if we could.
So if I may, what I have written is that that $250,000 be allocated from the COVID fund for the Bolinas track, provided it meets the provincial rules.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that because we don't know at this point whether it is or not. So that's all I wanted to ensure. All right, fair enough. Go ahead.
And thank you, Your Worship. And my comment would just be that the reason that I'm putting forth this today is because it will be coming up in 2021. So I realize that we have somewhat a reserve fund anyways left over for the following year, but I believe that the track, if successful anyways, will be going ahead shortly. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Pardon? $2 million. Mr. Moody, would you please provide us a background on the issue regarding web map replacement project?
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the council. Staff are asking council's approval for the inclusion of the web map replacement project for the 2021 budget at a cost of $95,000 and to authorize establishment of a software maintenance budget of $9,500 annually commencing in 2022. At previous meeting, I brought up the issue of the web map replacement project, and at this point, if anyone had any detailed technical questions that they would like to ask me about that project, I'd be more than willing to give you any information.
Let's put the motion on the floor and then we can have that conversation. First off, just so we're clear, my understanding is that we've already approved the $95,000 and we're only really talking about the $9,500 for the annual maintenance budget to be put into the budget. Okay, just so we're clear, we're not talking about the full amount again. All right, so I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Moved by Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor O'Brien. Now discussions. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the, I guess the question would be on the maintenance side of it. Is there other municipalities using this same program at all? I guess that would be my first question.
Yes, there is.
And is there, like, have we been able to ascertain how things go with them? And has it been an expensive program to manage for them?
The cost is approximately right on as far as annual maintenance goes when you compare to other municipalities of similar size that have a similar expenditure for the product. The product is a product backed by ESRI, which is our GIS vendor, which owns 97% of the world market in GIS technology. That product does have a fairly aggressive foothold in the British Columbia market as well as across Canada.
Excellent. Yes. If I may just follow up and
Sure.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I remember when we discussed it before, when it came in front of us, that there was a fact of a concern that some of the software goes out of date, and then it's an issue beyond that. So this is great that we've selected somebody that's got that sort of background and that foothold in the marketplace. So thank you. Great work.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question towards Mr. Moody. Just a refresher on that of the timeline for the completion of the web map replacement program?
The implementation would start in the spring of 2021, and hopefully we'd be finished by summer.
Thank you.
Sometime through summer, yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? I will call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Mr. Moody, keep going.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, through you to the council, staff are asking council's approval to release an RFP to the market for the provision of fiber optic services to city facilities, and that council would authorize the inclusion of $125,000 in the 2021 budget to establish the fiber optic services for the purpose of networking city facilities, specifically a connection from this facility here through a existing communications conduit that goes to the Springwood Reservoir and then on to the water treatment plant that would also connect up our Public Works facility as well.
Thank you. Again, just as a point, this was already included in our COVID-related conversations. So you're making the motions for all three recommendations. I need a seconder then. Councillor O'Brien, discussion on this? It's something we sorrowfully need for our operations. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I think Mr. Martin is in the background there somewhere. There he is.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Martin. Would you please give us the background on the issue regarding the Western Red Cedar tree management?
So as presented to council at the last meeting, the Western Red Cedar tree management has become an issue for us within the Parks Department in the city of Parksville. As the trees are failing throughout the area, we are asking for $50,000 per year to manage this situation and removing the trees, getting rid of the wood, and potentially being able to do planting prescriptions to replant the areas as well.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor O'Brien. Discussion? We have had this conversation before, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Mr. Martin, please, for the urban forestry strategy.
An urban forest strategy, yes. So this was presented to council last meeting as well. We are looking for $50,000 on top of a $30,000 on top of a $50,000 reallocation of a wetlands study to put towards an urban forest strategy that will help us clarify our goals of canopy targets and achieve a framework for the city staff, residents, and the development community to reach these goals and the benefits of a well-managed urban forest.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Wilson. Discussion. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say that I'm really happy about this this report and Guy's work on this. I think it's a proactive way to manage our city, and I'm sure that most residents would be pleased that that we have such a talent on our staff as Guy to bring this forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Butterworth, somewhere back there, I believe you're in camera land. There he is.
Oh,
Please, the 2020 to 2024 amended financial plan, please.
yes, if I may, Your Worship. This is under Section 165 of the Community Charter. Council is permitted to make changes to their adopted financial plan. And during 2020 budget or during the 2020 amendments were approved by Council through various resolutions. And then other changes are proposed by staff. Primarily, most of them relate to deferring projects to 2021 from 2020 that were delayed, partly due to COVID. November 4th, we had a meeting, special budget meeting, and all of the adjustments up to that date were presented to Council. The adjustments are shown on Appendix A of the agenda package. That's pages 88 to 95. And after November 4th, a couple more adjustments came up, and they're detailed on Appendix B of the agenda package, which is on page 96. Staff have not received any comments from the public on any of the amended budget items, and the recommendation is as per the agenda.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Fraz, seconded by Councillor Chandler. Discussion? Did you have your, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to channel Councillor Greer a little bit because this is one of the most important parts of our job is budgeting and the work that goes into what the city of Parksville does. So it's a bit of a disappointing, I'll use the word. And 2020 has been disappointing in my world, and that too, that we haven't had a lot of communication and contact with our residents a great deal, and that we haven't had any comments in regards to the amended budget or anything. And yet, I know that a lot of the projects and what didn't occur in 2020 and that are being moved forward to 2021 are near and dear to so many people's residents' hearts. And that Councillor O'Brien talked about the Bolinas track just in previous motions and when I look at some of the capital budget changes, like the pickleball courts and the lacrosse box and just washrooms in the kin huts and so many others, and that too. And our staff does such amazing work getting us the information and getting these projects to move forward and to help us make our decisions. And I just wanted to say thank you. And as I did mention, that it's a little disappointing that we don't have quite the amount of fanfare or comments in regards to our budgets when our residents can make their voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I have a couple of quick questions if I could, Mr. Butterworth, if you would. First off, I noticed that the increase from 2020 to 2020 in total property taxes was somewhere around 4.3% increase. But before everybody jumps off saying we've got a 4.3% tax increase, it really is, can you tell me how much of that is actual increase to the existing residents and how much of that is because of new construction and new, well, just new taxes being assessed?
Yes, there was 130,000 that relates to new assessments, and just flip over on my spreadsheet and see the other amount. So 130, so about 370,000 relates to tax increase for 2021, the proposed tax increase. Of course, this isn't the 2021 budget. This is just part of the 2020 amended budget. So the proposed tax increase is 3.5% in this.
Okay,
And
sorry, I gave you the wrong years. I apologize.
Yeah, so for 2021, it's about 370,000 relates to tax increase and 130,000 relates to new assessments.
Can you, if you've got a calculator, which I would expect that you would have on your desk, would you be able to give me a quick calculation of what that is as a percentage of the 16,160,000?
This is 0.8%.
0.8.
Is the new assessment.
So less than 1%?
Yes. Now, again, this is, it doesn't have the actual assessments from 2020, or the actual new construction in 2020 is not in this yet because we don't have those numbers yet. So we're using our normal standard amount that we use, which is 27.7 million of new assessment. So I suspect that 2020, the amount's going to be higher than that when we actually get there, when we present the 2021 budget to council in the spring.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? All right, then I need to move, well, we have the mover and seconder, but call the vote for the recommendations 1 through 4. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Nice job, Mr. Butterworth. Mrs. Weeks, can you give us the background on the issue concerning the 2021 Chamber of Commerce fee?
Yes, so this is for consideration for the fee-for-service agreement for the renewal of the Chamber's operation of the Visitor Information Center. The Chamber has successfully operated since 1999. In recent years, the only change has been the inflationary fee. And for 2020, the only other change proposed is relating to the hours and days of operation. And this is mainly due to the unpredictability of the pandemic. No other changes to the terms and conditions are proposed, and the recommendations as per the agenda.
I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Moved by Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Comments, questions? If you bear with me for just 1 second. Mrs. Weeks, I understand that this is about a 2% increase over last year.
2.2.
2.2%. I'm trying to understand how that could be when we're cutting down hours of operation because of COVID, and COVID's going on. And we were, and also I have a concern that I would be very disappointed if the Chamber of Commerce hadn't applied for grants for their employees, for their wages of these. So I'm trying to understand why we should be able to justify giving them a 2.2% increase. And I also have a concern about what happened to the grant money. Is that being subtracted from our fees that we're providing?
I'm not sure about the grant. For the fees, we go where it's based on the BC Consumer Price Index. that's where we got the 2.2%.
But is that in the contract that we have to increase it by the consumer price index?
Yes.
Does it specify as far as how many hours of operation and so on in that contract?
Yeah, the consumer price index is under number 3. And then it was at the request of the chamber to reduce the hours because they were having issues finding volunteers during the pandemic.
Okay, again, I go back to if we're paying for the wages and they're getting grant money, and that's an if, I'm not sure of that, but if they're getting grant money, shouldn't that grant money be applied towards the wages and be reimbursed back to the city, not to the chamber? Could we find that out before we approve this? So obviously, I'm going to be voting against this until we are deferring it, make a recommendation to defer until the next meeting, if that's the case, because I'd like to find out about the grants and so on. I'll make a motion to defer. All right, I need a seconder for that. Councillor Fraz, any discussion on the deferral? No, I'm sorry, you're right, no discussion on deferrals. I'll call the question. All those in favor of deferring? Opposed? Okay, opposed by Councillor Wilson and Councillor Patterson. It carries. Thank you. I just want to find out, once we get that answer, I'd be glad to support it. Mrs. Weeks, background on the meeting dates.
Yes, thank you. So under the provisions of the charter and the city's procedure bylaw, the council meeting scheduled for the upcoming year must be made available to the public prior to January 1st. Council meetings, of course, are held the first and third Monday of each month. We've continued with the 3 p.m. start time from January till March, the 6 p.m. start time from April through September, and then back to 3 p.m. from October to December. To date, staff have not received any complaints or concerns regarding these altered meeting start times. And then it's important to note that the public hearings, we can schedule them at any point and any time, so they do not need to be the same as council meetings, and the recommendations as per the agenda.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Councillor Fraz, and seconded by Councillor Chandler. Discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Bylaws. Second reading and advance to public hearing. Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2020 2000.130. Map and text amendment to Comprehensive Developments CD 30 at 480 and 490 Island Highway West. And before I ask for mover and seconder, I'm going to advise that there has been a change to the recommendation, which was on the council meeting agenda. In accordance with the public health orders, the public hearing will be held on February the 1st instead of January the 18th, and will be held by electronic means. Okay, so we're just moving the meeting date from the 18th of January to February 1st. All right, so I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Moved by Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Fraz. In discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. 3 readings. The 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw 2020 to 2024, number 1564.1, to amend the 2020 to 2024 5-year financial plan. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Move. Don't all break your arm getting it up so quick. Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Chandler. Discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Bet you it doesn't take that long when I call for adjournment. Notice of motion. Does any member of council have a notice of motion? Okay, new business. I would, oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to mention, anyways, as a liaison, anyways, to the Bolinas Track project. They had another meeting recently within the last 2 weeks with a renewed committee report suggesting that they could get by with a less expensive track than they had originally proposed, and in the neighborhood of getting it down to 1.5 million. That's with built-in contingency as well. And the thing is that, and they've embarked on a new effort of themselves to be fundraising through various grants that are now being made available. I understand MP Johns has already contacted them, and I'm sure they'll be contacting new MLA Walker as well to see what's available as well. So they've got a new enthusiasm to getting as many grants as they can, as well as harnessing some of that great student power that they proved at Bolinas anyways with the latest purchase of West Bolinas Island. So just to say that the track committee is back on track. And so, I had to work that in, you know. So just to give council a progress report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. Although I'm not the liaison to the museum, I am the liaison to the arts, Macmillan Arts and such. But recently the Parksville Museum sent out their email, and I think all of council received it as well. But they were very successful in their fundraising drive, and they've come up with the funds to purchase and install the chimes and everything digital carillon in the Knox Heritage Church. And I think that's just really, really amazing. But we talked about today and in the past about Parksville's 75th birthday, that it's this year. And unfortunately, we weren't able to celebrate this past June, but I was just reminded that it'll be the 40th anniversary of the museum in 2023. So it's really quite amazing when you think about our small community and the different parts of our community that have weathered the age of and age, I guess you'd say, and the buildings and everything that are there and that are surviving and showing us the past and still moving forward. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. They have done an amazing job. They're doing just amazing things with that facility. I would like to request council to approve to introduce a motion without notice. The motion is to cancel December 21st regular council meeting, and I need a mover and a seconder for that. So first off, I need to have it vote on whether you will allow me to have that motion come to the floor, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I moved by myself, second by Councillor Chandler to accept the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. All right, now I need a recommendation that December 21st meeting, a regular council meeting, be canceled. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Pardon? Oh, I'm the mover? I'm the mover. I need a seconder for that then. Councillor Chandler. Discussion. All those in favor? Thank you. Passed. New business continued. Arising from previous council meeting, I'd like to speak briefly about council's recent midterm strategic planning check-in. This council has embarked upon an ambitious work plan, and in 2019, we solidified our priority objectives by adopting the current strategic plan. Given that we are now in the middle of our term, council engaged in a review of projects, including both council directives and staff initiatives. With the aid of the recent workshop, council has now has now refocused and identified priorities based on our strategic objectives. As a result, I'd like to introduce the following motion: that council rise and report on the 2021 work plan, and that staff be directed to publish the list along with an explanation of how the list relates to council strategic objectives. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Fraz, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Discussion. Councillor Fraz.
Just want to make a comment that I think this is another great thing for us to be rising and reporting on. And we've talked before about our transparency. I know that we're working on bringing in some other things out of Camera 2 for our work that we've done. So I just want to thank council for all of their hard work on involving the public in these decisions. I know this is hard choices to make too, as we check in and refocus ourselves, allocate the resources that we have. I know we'd all like to see many things be done here, and I'm sure we will over the years, but for where we are right now, pretty proud of our staff and the council for the work we've done. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler, Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I echo what Councillor Fraz says there too. I think that we've made some really tough decisions. We've made some good decisions, and I think as a group, we've debated. We've had a lot of discussions about a lot of subjects, and I think it's been a really good year in consideration of what's actually happened this year. I think we got a lot done during that time, and I'm going to take my hat off to the staff. It's been an amazing scenario, because in the beginning stages of this strange work world that we all of a sudden got into, how productive they actually were, and just it blew my mind. Actually, I was quite amazed by it all. So my hat's off to them, and for people keeping a very good attitude. It's hard every day to get up and have a big smile on your face when you're dealing with financial issues and all the things that we all deal with all the day, business people and so on. So anyways, I just wanted to pass on my congratulations for great work on the staff perspective as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for recognizing that at this part of the meeting. I think it's very important for the public to understand what we've tried to do, what we wanted to do, and what we weren't able to do. And my comments are also to do with what was inflicted upon the world with this COVID. And I'm so proud of this council, as well as the staff, for committing to continue the governance of this city and providing everything that all the necessary infrastructure and all the rest of the things that they do day in and day out during this COVID, because everybody was rewriting the plan book from the minute we went. And the amount of stress I realize that has occurred to our staff and I just want to say how much I totally appreciate the fact that you've dedicated a very large portion of your life to make sure that this city has continued to operate and run well. And I can't stress enough, and as well as to the council as well, because they've taken a lot of heat over these past 10 months now. And the thing is that, and continue to, out of fear of this dreadful pandemic and so forth, have continued to meet and put yourselves out there, and you have put yourselves at risk. You have, and I want to recognize that, as well as the staff have. And so I think it's very important. And we've come through with an astronomical amount of achievements in this, and we didn't get all we wanted, and we learned how to play better together in the sandbox. I have to say, where there's lots of heavy, heated discussions, lots of compromises were made, and at the end of the day, Parksville's a better place for it. So I thank you all for your professionalism, for the staff and the council. Parksville should be very proud of you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to echo what a lot of my fellow councillors have said already. This has been an emotional year, a trying year, a year of some accomplishments, and even a little bit of failure. We have to acknowledge that we don't always get what we want. But when we take a vote around the table, we move forward with it. And I think that needs to be recognized. And some of those decisions are incredibly hard. The staff that we have in the city of Parksville are absolutely amazing. And when we look at our budget that we just did and the need for more existing staff, it's because their workload is extremely, extremely high. And I acknowledge that, and I think everyone around the table does, obviously, by making our budget and wishes known and our priorities known. And last month we went through a process and tried to figure out, you know, what projects we could actually accomplish, and what's in the best interest of Parksville. And that's first and foremost for me, is, and always has been, is what's in the best interest of our residents. And so at this time and at our last council meeting, I just want to thank you to the mayor and to the rest of my council and to city staff, how much I appreciate you, and that I wish you the very, 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 very best of the rest of 2020, and Merry Christmas. And I'm so looking forward to 2021. So thank you.
Thank you. And Merry Christmas to you too. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I have to echo everything that everyone said around the table, so I won't repeat it except to say Merry Christmas to everyone, including the public. But I just want to mention to the public that they try to stay informed. I know it's hard, it's a little bit of work, but use our city website. You can watch our videos, you can watch the meetings after, you can get a synopsis of the minutes, and yeah, so make yourselves informed, and I think it'll answer a lot of questions for you as to how we make decisions. So once again, thanks to everybody, including our staff. And yeah, we have had some heated discussions for sure, but I think it's really amazing that how we come together and make decisions. It's a real fascinating process. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I will end this part of it off by saying we've accomplished 2 years of our 4 years in the term. And I would say, without a doubt, I am so proud of what council and staff have achieved in this time frame. I would suggest to you that we've probably accomplished more than just about any other council has in recent history for their full terms, let alone for half a term. So be proud of that. I think the public needs to take time to read this report and understand what's going on. This isn't just what you see here at this table. That's just a part of the function that each councillor and the staff do. There's an awful lot that goes on behind the scenes, and it's important that people understand that our biggest job function as a council is to be able to prioritize what's going on, what needs to happen to achieve the goals that they've set out for us. And we have to be able to make the tough decisions. And I will guarantee you that if you read Facebook, you'll see it all over the place, that not everybody agrees with all the decisions that we make. We make them with the best information that we have, taking into consideration what is important to the city of Parksville. We're not out for our own gain, that's for sure. We are out to accomplish what's best for this city and for its residents. So I ask you, please take the time. It's important to understand the number of decisions that we make on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, throughout the last 2 years, everything that's gone on in this council. It is really something to behold, and the people around this table have done an amazing job, and I'm so happy that I was fortunate enough to be part of this team. So from that, I thank everybody. I thank the public for your interest in the city of Parksville and everything that goes on. And I want to say, as has been said a couple times already, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank God 2021 is coming on quickly, because waiting for getting rid of 2020 can't come soon enough in a lot of areas. Stay healthy and stay safe in the upcoming year, and hopefully we'll have the vaccine sooner rather than later, and we can get back to our normal lives. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, before we proceed to special business, I'd like to remind the public that our next regular council meeting will be on Monday, January the 18th, 2021 at 3 p.m. I need a mover and a seconder for a recommendation that pursuant to section 91E and K of the Community Charter, council proceed to a closed meeting to consider items relating to land and the proposed provisions of a municipal service. Need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. We will go into camera.